Well, hello and good afternoon, everyone. Excuse me. Um, just so everyone knows, Monday is a holiday here in the U.S., so I will be taking a break from doing the Facebook Lives on Monday, and we'll catch up again on Wednesday. So we'll let everybody get signed in here, and if you just say where you're watching from, that'd be great. And thank you for the likes and the loves already. Hey, Don, how are you? Tamara, how are you doing? So we're getting ready for the big holiday weekend, and I thought, what would be a good, subject matter for today? And one of the things that, we've been having a lot of turmoil, a lot of situations that we've been dealing with. And the idea was, how do we really stay in control? Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, sales professionals, we have this internal desire, and even as human beings, to be in control. And so that's what we're going to talk about, is the control secret to overcoming adversity for business success. And it's an interesting concept because the first question that I ask, and particularly of myself, is, can I control anything? Because we have this, again, desire to think that we can take adversity out of the equation, and it's a normal part of the equation. So when we look at what we can truly control, to me, it's we can control the activity and our response. That's it. The things that happen to us and the opportunities, a lot of those, in fact, the majority of those are not in our control. So how do we turn this equation around so that we can actually benefit from it? And I wanted to share just real briefly two different life-changing events for me in my professional career, and then for me also personally. In 1988, some of you know that I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And I was told I would be dead or in a wheelchair within 10 years. And that diagnosis was right in the middle of my financial planning career. I didn't have time for that detour, that piece of information that I just didn't want, that speed bump in the way of what I was accomplishing very successfully in my business. And so that was one of the things that really turned the tide for me of how do we adjust to the circumstances. The second one was 9/11. Everyone here in the U.S. and for some around the world, we got thrown into the 9/11, whether or not, hey Lloyd, how are you? Whether or not we were in the general location in New York, or if we just were affected by it. Now, as a financial planner, I saw this second plane go into the World Trade Center. And APK, welcome. And for me, that was a surreal experience because at that moment, I realized that I was out of business. Now, I wasn't out of business of my responsibilities, both to my clients and to my employees. I had an overhead that I still had to meet, but I had no way for me to generate revenue from that experience, and I had no guarantee of when and if it would ever come back. So one of the things I really want to give you today is that framework, and really, I like things in three. Three is a balanced number. Hey, Ricky, and the three items or the three steps that I'd like to share with you are the three steps that I use almost every day in my personal life as well as in my business life. And the first stop, or the first point, is when we have this adversity, and we know we're going to have it, it's not, Tommy, thanks for coming on. It's not that we're going to be oblivious to it, or we all of a sudden have a life that is without any adversity or any worry or circumstance. But the first thing is to stop and get perspective. What has actually happened? Step back from the initial stimulus. Hey, Robert, thanks for coming by. And what is that initial stimulus, and what does it mean? And so really it's taking inventory. Now, when we're right in the middle of the initial event, if you will, like when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I had gone numb from the neck down. I had no feelings in my hands. I lost the ability to write. I had lost the ability to walk. But in my assessment, I started looking and getting perspective because the doctor really said I was going to be, terminal. I was not going to be on the planet within 10 years. And so one of the things that I got perspective on it is that I was still here. I was still in the game. I was still here with the ability to make adjustments to what was happening to me physically. And so the second thing is to do what I call triage. Looking at all of the things that are happening and then putting them in a order of importance or urgency. And so for me, again, let's go back to the multiple sclerosis. When I lost the feeling in my body, basically, from the neck down, I started triaging of what did I have. If I could see my feet, I could walk still. If I could see my hands, I could do certain things, but I was feeding my ear. I lost the ability to button shirts. So I started looking for resources to be able to accomplish certain things in that triage that I could treat. And then the third thing was that plan of action. What was it that I could control? Now, in my mind, that first episode in 1988, I had no control over. It was a complete surprise. I had no idea anything was going to happen or that it was, something I could control. But I could control my mindset. I could control my attitude. I could control some of the things that I could have in my bag of tricks, if you will, because the doctor said there was nothing I could do. I could take steroids. Hey, Shelley. Hey, Robert, thanks for coming on. I could do certain things like that, but I didn't see that as a benefit. So I created a visualization that benefited me. I started looking for the positives of what I had to deal with in the physical symptoms. I also made a determination that I was to say, I never owned it. I never said I have had something. I've always said I was diagnosed with. So when we have circumstances like, say we have, hey, James, if we have a circumstance that, let's say it's a financial one, there's a difference of saying I'm poor or there's no way out, there's no opportunity, or that at this present moment I am broke. Now how and what are the opportunities for me to change that? What are the steps that I can take to now, and this is the third step, how to create a plan of action, to really create that step-by-step that are the possibilities. Now some of those things may not turn out exactly the way we want them, and we have those adjustments along the way. But really the action steps that I wanted to really encourage everyone to do, whether or not you're using them right now in a circumstance or at some time in the future, is to look at, if you're dealing with something right now, look at it in these three steps. What is, in perspective, what is it? What are the elements that have happened? What are even some of the possibilities that the positive things are inside of this? And so looking at it from a distance gives you the ability to see more of actually what it is. Now, when you're, again, right in the middle of the fight, you just got to deal with it at that moment. There's no way out of that. But as soon as you can back up and say, what are the elements that have been dealt me? And then we can start looking at what are the things that we can do to adjust to those circumstances. Because again, it's our reaction that we can adjust and take control of, not the circumstance itself. And then, look at the possibilities, do the triage of it, and then create your plan of action. Now, if you're not dealing with something right now, that's okay. I'm not wanting you to. But what I would suggest is coming up with a very succinct, very simple step, and maybe just writing these three things down. And when something happens, to be able to go back to it in a logical way out of an emotional stimulus. Because many of you also know that I love airplanes and flying. And in flight school, the first thing they told us and taught us to do, if we have an emergency in the air, let's say we have a fire in the cockpit, they said the first thing you do is fly the airplane. You don't look for the manual, you don't look for the fire extinguisher, you don't do anything, but you first fly the airplane. And what happens in doing that, you're able to settle in, get perspective, take an assessment of what the situation is, then you can triage, then you can look at, I've got a fire, now I need the fire extinguisher. Where's the nearest airport? What are the things that I can do to rectify the situation to a positive outcome? And then to activate that. to actually do it, to have that plan of action. But all of this is doable because I was taught that in flight school. If I was to think about it and I have to create it in the emergency itself, it's not going to work as well for me, or for anyone for that matter. So I'm hopeful that this has been beneficial for you. Thanks again for the likes and loves and the shares that you guys do. I want to remind you we're not going to do this on Monday because it is a holiday in the U.S. And I will be coming again at 1 o'clock Mountain Time on Wednesday. Have a great weekend and look forward to seeing you all very soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.